Hello again and welcome back. In Task 3, we discussed how to plan authentic problems in our problem-based learning instruction, and this video is just going to expand a little more on that discussion. Our curious nature is an educational goldmine. It's not nearly as infrequently as I would like to admit that students have sat in my class and daydreamed. When I have prepared a stellar lesson, I often catch myself wishing I could join them. But what if our lessons could rival that of our students' escape to dreamland? The good news is, it can. Careful planning can ensure that our students are just as interested in what's going on in the classroom as they are in their utopian escape. The big idea is prevalent in many teacher preparation and professional development programs currently. And oftentimes, teachers will use the major topic headings found in our ever-expanding list of state standards. But that isn't necessarily the best choice or the only resource we should use when setting our big ideas. Every lesson has a big idea. Sometimes it's even bigger than one lesson and is expanded to a unit, a semester, and sometimes even a year of instruction. To identify the big ideas in your content, you need to ask yourself one question. What is the most important things students need to know? For instance, in my biology class, I cover the Krebs cycle. For any of you non-science teachers, you probably won't remember learning this biological process, but I will teach a lesson that covers it every year with my incoming freshmen. But when planning my problem-based lessons, knowing the ins and outs of the Krebs cycle is not the important takeaway. Rather, the Krebs cycle is simply a supporting piece to my big idea. My big idea for that lesson is metabolism. Once the big idea has been established, I can select an authentic problem in which students have to understand the Krebs cycle to solve. For me, this problem is often related to the obesity epidemic our country faces. Now, there's not a single right answer to solving the obesity epidemic. This fact makes the problem not only authentic, but also ill-defined. Suddenly, my big idea is starting to provide me with these broad parameters in which my students can explore and learn about a topic that interests them as it pertains to a person's metabolism. By allowing this latitude, the learning environment shifts from teacher to student directed. Students generally love, or at least will learn to love, having some control over how they engage with the topic. For each student, or with each group, they'll take different paths for their adventure, but they're going to be more committed to engaging in the process because now they feel like they have a choice in how and what they learn. Now, there's often a misconception that this means turning students loose to do whatever they want and that you have no guarantee that they will obtain the learning objective. With proper problem-based learning planning strategies, this couldn't be any further from the truth. There is a planning procedure that will keep your students within those parameters and ensure they achieve the learning objective. The first step is to plan and state clear expectations. You need to think about how will you describe the parameters to your students. This has to be easily understood by your students. The next step in this procedure is using a rubric. Now, I know many teachers that cringe at the word rubric because it means they have to grade a project. Problem-based learning, especially when teaching problem-solving skills, hinges on the use of rubrics. We've already established that there will be no right and wrong answers due to the use of ill-defined problems. Therefore, a rubric is there to help the teacher explain to students what's expected and what do they actually have to accomplish to achieve mastery. It also serves as an invaluable tool to ensure that when you're planning your lessons, that the parameters you set stay in line with your overall learning goal and objective. It is a way for students to ensure that they're exploring the issue and the topic in the way that you need them to. However, students are not always aware of how to use a rubric. If this concept is new for your students, it may take explicit instruction from you. One common mistake is to take this ability to use a rubric effectively for granted. Make sure your students are comfortable with it and provide support until they've reached that level of comfort and they're confident to move forward on their own. Lastly, effective problem-based learning lessons, they revolve around you planning guiding questions. If a student is getting off track or is at risk of reaching outside those parameters that you've set, it's important that the teacher have a question, not a direction, that will gently guide them back into the area of the big idea. For example, when my students are exploring metabolism as it refers to obesity, I may ask them, why do you think that some people convert more nutrients to fat than others? Do you think there could be an enzyme or a hormone or a biological process that causes that? With that questions, I guide students to look further than eating fewer calories results in less fat stores, and direct their attention toward the enzymes and hormones and biological processes that I know will direct their search to include the Krebs cycle. Due to the small size of our school, we have a unique opportunity that teachers in larger schools don't usually get. We have a family-like culture. We've known many of our students from early elementary, they're our neighbors, we know their parents, and we have insight into our students' lives that most teachers never get to experience. This opportunity gives us a chance to utilize problem-based learning to its full potential. We are aware of areas of interest, we're aware of learning styles, our students' personalities, and group dynamics, and we can use that and plan for those things to enhance their learning experience. Planning specific groups or specific guiding questions for certain students that will direct them toward an area within the big idea that we know will pique their interest makes it to where we can anticipate and plan for their questions or frustrations we know certain students will encounter throughout their learning experience. This lets us prepare to help them rather than being forced to react to something we didn't see coming. This is absolutely a gift, so don't miss this opportunity. The last thing I'd like to discuss is that when planning a problem-based learning lesson, it is important to stop and incorporate celebration and cultivation of curiosity rather than smothering their fire when they get a touch off topic. We can kindle it and give it a direction to burn. By tapping into this inherent human condition, we can effectively enhance their problem-solving abilities and encourage them to be independent learners. There is nothing as beautiful or fulfilling as seeing the spark in a child who feels the accomplishment of discovery. Careful planning on your part will give students an opportunity to experience that accomplishment many times over. Sometimes we have to unlock the door and just let the kids run through the forest to truly experience the wonder of the world around them and to discover what they're capable of. As always, thank you for your time and happy planning.